Today we speak with Jerry Kantor, a homeopath and acupuncturist specializing in pediatrics, mental illness, autism spectrum ailments, autoimmune conditions, and infertility. He was the first acupuncturist granted an academic appointment at Harvard Medical School's Department of Anesthesiology, and he's a faculty member of the Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine. He's the author of several books, including Interpreting Chronic Illness, The Toxic Relationship Cure, Autism Reversal Toolbox, and Hamish Homeopathy. Today's episode is going to focus on his brand new book, which is going to be released very soon, called Sane Asylums, The Success of Homeopathy Before Psychiatry Lost Its Mind. And this reveals the astonishing but suppressed history of homeopathic psychiatry in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This episode was recorded early June, so I have felt like a little kiddie the month before Christmas when you're so excited for something, but it feels like forever before you can open your presents. Now, I have checked the simonandschuster.com.au, and they are showing the publishing date as the 3rd of November 2022, and innertraditions.com is showing the publishing date as 6 September 2022. So it is definitely worth popping on those websites and putting your name on the wait list so you can be notified as soon as the book has actually come out. But it is sounding fascinating. I cannot wait to get a copy and have a read. You can find out more about Jerry at www.vitalforcehealthcare.com. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, we get to hang out with Jerry Kantor. Welcome, Jerry.
Hello. What a pleasure to be here.
Well, I am so excited to have you on the podcast, and I couldn't believe it when you replied to my email and said, yes, you'll come on. So I am just super excited to have you here and super excited to chat about your new book. But, well, you've got two, but we're going to talk about one of them. Can you maybe tell our listeners first how you introduced to homeopathy?
Sure. I'm an acupuncturist. I was an acupuncturist for quite some time. So I have these dual careers. And I somehow, I was of the generation that we didn't learn herbs. That was a far-fetched additional branch of study. I didn't want to learn it. I thought I could never learn all the names and so forth. There came a point when I thought, gee, I'd like to augment my acupuncture practice with something. And I thought, gee, homeopathy is appealing. All I've got to do is get a program and plug some things in there, and I'll have an adjunct remedy. Boy, was I wrong. I sort of feel like I got tricked into it, but it really is my true calling. And even when I was studying, I was discovering I didn't really like repertorizing very much. I thought I'd never be good at that, but I love materia medica, and I absorbed it as if through the skin. Now, I'll also say that when I was in acupuncture school many, many years ago, I was cleaning up my house one day and I found these notes on homeopathy. Someone apparently came to my school and gave a lecture, and I wrote these neat little notes about it and paid absolutely no attention to it. Had no relevance to me whatsoever. But funny things happened, and I really feel something, there was some kind of a calling. And however it happened, I was supposed to become a homeopath. So I stumbled into it, and I kind of never looked back. I find it more interesting. Chinese medicine is fabulous, but it became a little mechanical for me after a while. But homeopathy never ceased to be interesting to me and just opened up so many vistas.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that the Chinese medicine background has helped your homeopathy? Because there are some kind of similarities, and you can definitely draw on one to help you with the other, right?
Oh my goodness, you've asked exactly the right question. That's probably one of the things I'm fairly good at. Is I use traditional Chinese medical theory to explain and to extend homeopathic theory. And my first book, which is Interpreting Chronic Illness, is the synthesis of traditional Chinese medical theory with what I call biomedicine, conventional medicine, and homeopathy. And I think I've come up with a very good synthesis, at least for my purposes, that enables the interpretation of chronic illness conditions. And I've extended that very much in this book, but I'm not going to talk about today, on existential quandaries, in which I've found these 5 very core existential questions that correspond to the 5 classical miasms. And that's that's territory I did not go into in my first book. But yeah, the Chinese medicine is really enables explanations that are simply not possible in normal English. And I've used that, I've taken advantage of that in a number of places, including my book on autism.
I got that book, the Autism Reversal Toolbox. That's been out for many years now because I got that several years ago. I feel like it was maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. I think I got that book. It's really
a second edition
good.
just came out just this past week. So
wow.
with a few revisions. So that's published through Emrys.
And I love that you're interpreting chronic illness book. You can, it's available on Kindle as well, because I was able to just quickly hop onto Amazon and it was available right there. And I could just, get it and start reading it straight away. So I love that you do that. I'm not too happy though, that the book that we're going to be talking about today, Sane Asylums, I went to go get that on Amazon and it's not out until the 9th of August. So you are just going to be... 9th?
I only know the 23rd when the hard copy comes out.
Oh, really? Well, it said the 9th of August for the Kindle version. And actually the podcast is probably going to come out just a little bit before that. So our listeners won't have to wait as long as I'm going to have to wait. But talk to us about your new book that's coming out, Sane Asylums, The Success of Homeopathy Before Psychiatry Lost Its Mind. What an amazing, amazing title. But what made you decide to write this? And it sounds like it was a bit of a journey down the rabbit hole for you. Talk to us about that.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, I'm a baseball fan. And one day I was just reading about homeopathy, I suppose, and I stumbled on an archive, a story about a homeopathic mental hospital which pioneered the use of baseball as therapy. This is the Middletown Hospital for the Insane, is how it was called. And
charming.
The story just absolutely amazed me. They had the superintendent, whom my book is dedicated to, Sheldon Talcott. Was an amazing man. But he noticed that people love watching baseball. His inmates loved watching it. And he started organizing little games that included the inmates of the asylum and the staff and the doctors. And they would play baseball. They had a baseball field behind one of the asylums. And then he noticed that people watching the games were just really fanatical about it. They actually were healthier. So what he did was he went and created a very, very formidable baseball team, rating the local teams in the area and even a minor league team. And he put this team together called the Asylums, which just blew my mind. They had uniforms at the Asylums, and they barnstormed. They played all the strong players. They played major league teams. They had a fantastic record. They had a future Hall of Famer by the name of Jack Chesbrough there, who briefly worked at the Asylum. And Talcott would offer $5 or something if someone hit a home run. Everybody got completely crazy about it. What I love, one of the side stories I got such a huge kick out of was that there was a neighboring asylum in Utica, which was infamous for its creation of this torture device called the Utica Crib, which imprisoned people to punish them or to calm them down. By the way, this is the expression "to become unhinged." I think comes from this, because when they were let out they were unhinged from the device. They were crazier than ever. So I think that's where the expression comes from. Anyway, in nearby Utica, the minor league team, in obeisance to that asylum, was named the Pentups.
The Pentups. Oh my gosh.
The Pentups. I find this just so funny. But I as hard as I researched, the asylums never played the Pentups, so that didn't happen. Well, anyway.
Just to clarify, this was the inmates that were part of this baseball team as well as the staff. I'm only using the term inmates because that's what you were saying. Like, were they called inmates or patients? Or okay,
patients. Only originally. What happened then was he realized that more hay could be made from actually having good baseball.
Okay.
So he got actual players. They weren't crazy.
Okay.
In my insane asylums, by the way, at the very end, when I'm having a fever dream of how things will go when the asylums come back, I do invent a baseball team called the Juggernauts. Pun on juggernaut and nuts. That would be my fantasy baseball team. But this was just a fantastic story for me. And the team, I have a long chapter on baseball in the book, which goes into really explores the many ways in which baseball is good for mental health. And there are actually some real studies about it. But Talcott, he was a very adventurous man, and he went and did this. But once I found out about this, I should say one more thing. So my original idea was to write a book about all the hospitals, homeopathic hospitals in the country, thinking, I can do that. Well, I was out of my mind myself, because there are hundreds and hundreds of them, and I had no idea how successful they were and how prominent. And there would be no way I could possibly do that. So I narrowed my focus down to the mental hospitals, and I'm so glad I did, because it was manageable. And a tremendously compelling story, all of its own. But the Middletown Hospital was the mother church, and literally, in many ways, the mother church of the movement of homeopathic mental hospitals. Many physicians cycled through there and started their other ones, their own hospitals. And it's just an amazing story. And I'm not going to summarize everything he did, but he has a chapter in the book. There was a number of things that were just so blessed for me. I wrote a chapter on the incarceration of Mary Todd Lincoln. So President Abraham Lincoln's wife, and it's one of the most researched topics in the world, the Lincoln family. There's more books about the Lincoln family, perhaps, than anybody else aside from Jesus Christ or Karl Marx. I mean, many books about her. She had a tremendous number of griefs, losing 2 children, having her husband being assassinated. She was detested in Washington, and then she ran afoul of her son. Well, this is where things get murky. She was there was a famous trial where she was judged insane and sent away. Well, anyway, there are 2 versions of this story. One is that she was as crazy as a loon and only got out of the asylum that she was sent to with the help of these lawyers. And one was that she was never crazy at all. Mm-hmm. And the narrative that I found when I researched with this is the third narrative, which is that she was really very, very much helped by homeopathy. And the story of the physician who treated her, Richard Patterson, is a mystery all but in itself. But I'm 99% sure that he treated her homeopathically, and I have very, very compelling arguments about that. The thing was this: he had the credentials of a conventional physician. But everybody said, even the homeopaths who were judging Mary Todd Lincoln said, "Oh, Senator Patterson, he's got something. He's got something special." Meanwhile, on paper, all he was another moral care practitioner. And moral care, as important as it is basically hand-holding, treating someone with respect and giving them opportunities to get fresh air and have some cultural opportunities. He had nothing else other than this magical thing that nobody would talk about. And the fact that homeopaths referred the family to him was very, very interesting. He was said, you got to really read between the lines in these things. He used medicines there was all kinds of coding for homeopathy, popular medicines of the time, which is a code word for it. You know, he clearly had something else, and there were things that he could do to detoxify her from chloral hydrate and things like that. Anyway, she was out of there, crazy as she was, in a couple of months, talking with his family and his children, and conversing and writing letters. And then the lawyers came along, and she was declared perfectly sane at the end of her sojourn in the Batavia Asylum, which I call a Sane Asylum. So that's one kind of thing that happened writing that book. A complete rabbit hole I stumbled down. I couldn't believe I found. I mean, it's maybe a coup, journalistic coup, 155 years later. You know.
And you were saying this was your first historical text that you've written.
I have never written a history book before. No.
Yeah, incredible.
And the other one I'm proud of having discovered was Clara Barris. Clara Barris is known as the muse of a famous naturalist. She was his anamorata and his executor of his estate. And that's what she's famous for. Well, there's a completely different thing here. For 14 years, she was the homeopathic physician and assistant to Selden Talcott at the Middletown Asylum. And she wrote an amazing book called Nursing the Insane, which I think is, from my limited reading in this area, probably the greatest nursing book ever written. It is fabulous. It is so sensitive. It is so funny and so generous with such incredible information. I think she deserves a name for herself, just along those grounds. She was really drawn to the psychological aspects of care. And that was also a function of what happened with women at that time. Even though she was a homeopathic physician, her book mentions nothing about homeopathy. It's really all the nursing aspects, the psychological stuff. She wound up becoming a psychotherapist when she left there. But clearly, she went to a homeopathic school. She was known as a doctoress, a homeopathic physician. But she didn't feel qualified to write about that. It was not her domain. That was for the men.
Oh, interesting.
But I was very pleased to be able to bring her life work, in nursing, to people's attention. I think
that's really special.
Nurses will appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so special, having like you uncovering this, so we can actually acknowledge these people, obviously, you know, even after their passing, but learn from them and acknowledge the work that they've done. And I'm sure that their ancestors would really appreciate that as well. So are you saying Clara Barris was working with Talcott in these asylums?
She was there. She was there for 14 years.
Amazing.
And I find a funny parallel with Clara Barton, another Clara B, who was incredibly famous for battlefield work. And I find that the yin and yang of one another, they were around the same time, and they both did this superb work. But Clara Barris is not anywhere near as famous as Clara Barton.
Oh, interesting. And was Talcott a homeopath himself, or how did the homeopathic okay, so did he and tell us a little bit more about how that would have operated. Like, do you know much about the administration of the remedies, or how that would have been run? And you said there were several of these asylums in the US.
So a number of these homeopathic superintendents were physicians in the Civil War, but they had a wonderful pedigree. They're amazingly intelligent people with a wide array of skills. And there was a career path there. It's enlightening to see how popular homeopathy was and what possibilities were open for him. He ran a hospital in New York at the charity hospital in New York. He ran the first inebriates hospital, which was homeopathic in New York City. And drunkenness was an enormous problem. You'll go down a rabbit hole with me if you ask that, because the madness was very, very different in those days. It's completely different now based on the creation of madness, but conditions like tardive dyskinesia by our drugs. The books of Robert Whitaker are an amazing revelation, although many of us know this, how harmful the psychiatric drugs are. Wasn't kidding when I said psychiatry lost its mind. It has really done a tremendous amount of damage, and we have the mentally unhealthiest country in the world is in terms of mental illness. If you look at Robert Whitaker's books,
it is very scary when you hear that there are children as young as 2 or 3 or 4 years old on antidepressants, and you're like, what on earth are we doing? That's really crazy.
Tardive dyskinesia did not exist. It was created by these drugs. So I'm finding myself writing this book and say, oh my God, I mean, every paragraph I'm going to have to talk about how madness was different. So what I did was, this is another real amazing rabbit hole I jumped down. I decided to write an appendix section called Compendium of Madness Perspectives. Now, this is not the same as DSM-5, but from all the readings I've done, it's really kind of an encyclopedia of every perspective on madness that there is. And when you go through that, if you have, it's sort of like a glossary of sort of things that I can refer to. But what I want to get people away from is not to have a knee-jerk response to oh, he's mad, he's crazy, when it's basically, and these are all the arguments of Thomas Zaz, that the people who are designated that are simply inconvenient to others. They're difficult. They're inconvenient, or they have politically unpopular ideas. And actually, I did come up with my own algorithm for what madness would be, and which is a combination of, in terms of thinking. There's a certain state that will get you fixed on a certain idea. So it's a combination of being fixed, being frightened, and oh my God, I've got to quote myself. I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but it's simply not the same as what DSM-5 talks about. These are these diagnoses which are completely nuts, and they're so arbitrary, but they cause an awful lot of trouble. So anyway, I have this compendium which is drawn from Buddhism, from every culture.
That's beautiful. So, and for our listeners, DSM-5's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And no, I didn't know that. I Googled it. But so what you're saying is you kind of did this addendum to this compendium, which is more like a holistic version of looking at mental health.
It's not just a holistic. It kept getting bigger and bigger. It should be a book by itself. Like I had a section, for example, on bloodlust, right? And
did you say bloodlust?
Bloodlust. Okay. When people fought, when in wartime, killing is absolutely not just necessary but desirable. There's situations like that. Robert E. Lee, for example, said, "Oh, it's a good thing war is so terrible. Otherwise we would grow overly fond of it." And I found there's lots of things like that put a different spin on things. And depending on where you're coming from, what your culture is. Every single concept that we have of madness is acceptable in some other context.
And it's actually interesting. I love how you said it's just, or you said Thomas Vaz says it's just inconvenient, because I can imagine that, so what year was the Civil War? My history is absolutely shocking, like early 1900s, right? when
Civil War,
there's a silent
mid 1800s.
Mid 18. Okay, that shows you how my husband will laugh because I always ask him, well, when did this or that happen? His history is amazing. But I'm guessing witches weren't burnt at the stake then anymore. So it wasn't like, a few years earlier, if a woman was trouble, they could say she's a witch and they could burn her at the stake. But by the 1850s, they probably couldn't do that anymore. So then they would just say, okay, she's insane. Go put her in a mental institution. So I love that.
You'll see witchcraft in my compendium. You'll see things like that. Oh,
really?
Every kind of thing. The superintendents like Talcott and Samuel Worcester were called to testify at insanity trials when President Garfield was murdered. It was important to figure out whether this man was crazy or not. And Sultan Talcott had the stature to go and do that. And it helped the cause and helped his credibility that he said, no, he was not crazy, this particular murderer. So they thought these things through. They didn't, what we do today, label everybody schizophrenic. In fact, I have a whole revisitation of that in my analysis of Kaczynski, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Yeah.
But you have to read that and see why that comes up. He would also, Sultan Talcott would also almost certainly have said that Kaczynski is sane.
And
he might have might have said he needs anacardium. But
and for our listeners, anacardium is the remedy made from the cashew nut. And I remember about 15 years ago, a colleague saying to me, have you ever seen how a cashew nut grows? And I'm like, no. And he showed me a picture. And I couldn't believe it. And so you've got this cashew apple and you've got the cashew nut. And when the one is ripe, the other one is rotten. The caricature of this remedy is the angel on the one shoulder and the devil on the other. And interestingly, you would like this, Jerry, is that Hilary Dorian, who also actually has a similar background in you in that she started out with acupuncture and then, went on to homeopathy after that. She says that anacardium is the homeopathic remedy she most often prescribes for homeopaths.
Whoa.
I know. What does that say? What does that say about homeopaths?
That's interesting. Well, many of us come from marginalized backgrounds. Maybe we have problems integrating the personalities of our parents, which kind of comes up in anacardium. I can think of a number of remedies for homeopaths. I've probably gone through a number of them myself.
Yeah, same here. And the other thing is that actually this edge of sanity and insanity, it's so fine. Like I often think that it's actually just such a fine line to tip a person over. And it can often just take a trauma at an unexpected time or whatever. I mean, at any stage of your life, really, to just tip a person over. So yeah, it is very fascinating. I was going to ask you, with your studies, and maybe this is in the book, did Talcott ever keep records of which remedies he would give people? Is there any record of any of that?
Yes.
Oh.
They were hard to get. And the way they're compiled is a little bit confusing. And also, believe it or not, there might still be privacy protections for some of these people. So they tended not to be. Well, the names were never given, but yeah, they were. I did find in my searches, I did find case histories.
That's cool.
But again, just talking about it, the way things were described, there were such different conditions then. I mean, syphilis was such a big deal. Consumption was such a big deal. Inebriation.
Consumption, I think, is tuberculosis, hey?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so that was why I felt compelled to create this compendium of Madness perspectives. And that was another place where I could talk about these old terms and what they were about. Also eugenics was that was another eye opener for me. The prominence in the prevalence of eugenic points of view, even among homeopaths. So that played into the kinds of diagnostics that were done. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, it didn't affect too much how homeopaths treated, but it certainly left a bad impression when you read it from today's standpoint. And of course, much worse things were done with it. It became eugenics in America was the blueprint for what the Nazis eventually did. The Nazis were delighted that Americans had come up with this notion, and boy, did they put it to work.
Far out. Now, I just want to make sure, because I am really intrigued to get this book myself. The Compendium of Madness Perspective. Is this something that is out already, or is this going to come out?
Oh no, this is actually an appendix section in the book.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm just thinking of your publication schedule. So you were super busy in COVID. So you've got this book coming out this year, and then you've got another book coming next year, and maybe like the full book version of the Compendium of Madness Perspective can come out. So then you sort it for every year.
Yeah, one of my reviewers said that Eric Leskowitz, who wrote the foreword to it, said when he found it, it was, my God, this should be a separate book.
Yeah.
I to me, it was a matter of expedience. I felt I had to create something like that, so I wasn't constantly interspersing these explanations. I put them all in one big place. If you want to know what we'll see what I have there. You pick anything, various kinds of mania, dark night of the soul, or degeneracy, or dementia praecox. It's all those things are back there and just explained, including chemical imbalance theory, which is totally false. I mean, that's explained back there too. I didn't want to have to do that constantly.
So interesting. So chemical imbalance theory, in that the theory is that if you have some sort of chemical imbalance, and if you take this drug, it's going to fix that chemical imbalance?
Well, this is the point of view that's been pushed relentlessly by the PR arms of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, I hear a lot
even as the psychiatrists, when they're talking officially, they would say they know that's a bunch of crap. It's not true. You cannot find a chemical imbalance based on a diagnosis of schizophrenia. You will not do that. It does not happen. And yet they try to distance themselves from it, even as they're making millions of dollars on the PR effect of that campaign.
Absolutely.
It's really disgraceful.
I do see clients coming into clinic, and it's almost as if somebody telling them this lie that it's due to chemical imbalance. They own that and take that label and then somehow make it okay. It's okay that I'm like this because I have a chemical imbalance. It's actually it's such a fine line, and so it can actually be so damaging that you're telling this person it's chemical imbalance, and they think, okay, there's something wrong with me. If I take this drug, that's going to fix that. So,
afraid not. By the way, here's an easy prediction to make. Because psychiatry is moving into the psychedelic area, which is frightening that these people will be in charge of that. But you watch how quickly they're going to disparage all these incredible miracle antipsychotics they've been pushing when the psychedelics come along and they can gain economic control of them. Suddenly, you'll hear nothing but crap, terrible things about those medicines. Every year now, when a new one comes out, the previous years that was terrible. This one is great, and they'll continue that with the psychedelics.
And that's why I was just saying in a previous episode as well that that's one of the things I love about homeopathy is that 200 years it's been the same. We haven't gone and said, that remedy is it doesn't work anymore. Don't use that remedy anymore. All our medicines have always, throughout 200 plus years, we've never recalled any of them. We've never, gone back on any of them. They've all been consistent throughout 200 years. So.
But I will inject a note of realism here. In writing this book, I have a chapter on concessions to the spirit of the time, which is about why homeopathy fell out of fashion, and again the economic pressures around that. And the homeopaths were very much to blame. They were under tremendous pressure to declare what they were, and they were absolutely invited to become physicians if they renounced their theory. But the allopaths never had a problem. It really never thought it didn't work. Just on economic principles, they just didn't want their lunch eaten anymore. In Talcott's day and Patterson's day, homeopaths were wealthy. It was funny when I was writing this book. My wife's a realtor, and so sometimes I'll find a real estate website on my computer, and Patterson's home in Bellevue was for sale. This beautiful mansion. And I said, oh my God, an Italianate mansion, just gorgeous. Oh my God, I'd like to buy that. I moved there. It would be so funny. It's not available. It's off the you can't see it anymore, but it was.
It's so interesting.
It was up there.
Wow. That's incredible. So, why in the first place though, like what was it that drew you? We had COVID and you had all this writing time. What do you feel was the essence of what drew you to writing about these asylums?
Well, one easy cut at it is it's a disgrace to me to know that there's this gigantic piece of history that people don't know about. I would tell people what I wrote about, and they say, I didn't know that. I say, right, that's why I had to write this. It would be like knowing you're the only person who knew the War of 1812 happened, and you want to tell people about it. No, that didn't happen. I mean, so actually, one of my early chapters is called "The Dead Sea Scrolls of Homeopathy," where I pretend that I've discovered all these things in a cave. All the documentation, it's just a metaphor for these yellowed old journals and these old books. Uh-huh. There's a publishing house out of the University of Michigan, and there's a place called Forgotten Books. I swear, the only person who must be buying these books is me. They produce these. I buy them up. As I say, Clara Barris's book, Nursing the Insane, and Selden Talcott's book, and Samuel Worcester's book, and Robert Butler's books. They exist. They've been digitalized and brought out in facsimiles, and also some of the journal articles, key ones, have been aggregated into hardcover.
Are they available online as well?
Was, Google Hathaway, I think it's called, and Google Books. You can see a lot of them. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
You can find them if you do the search. Mm-hmm. But no, basically, I said, my God, someone has to write this. I like to write books that I would read, but in this particular case, I said, this has got to be done. I mean, and not only that, this has got to be published. It's got to be in libraries. People have got to notice this, because it reverses a tremendous injustice, the kiboshing of this history. It's one thing to attack homeopathy for its principles or for its science, but please, I mean, history is history. I mean, we're not the Soviet Union. I mean, it shouldn't be like that. But it is. You look at the web every day. It annoys me that how many websites of hospitals and medical schools have whitewashed their history. All their founders were homeopaths.
Mm-hmm. I know,
and associations of people like that.
Yeah, Dana Ullman is really good at writing about the history of homeopathy and all the educational institutions in America named after Samuel Hahnemann. But the medical doctors that study there don't even know that their college is named after a homeopath, the founder of homeopathy, which is quite mind-blowing.
I can testify to that. I had many years ago in my acupuncture office, I had a physician who graduated from Hahnemann Medical College, as it was called at that time, in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, well, how do you feel about your college having been named after this person? He had no idea what I was talking about. He had absolutely no idea.
It's incredible.
So
and I really hope that, maybe somewhere down the track, once this book of yours comes out and it creates a bit of a movement for people to acknowledge the history, that, I could see a bit of a statue erected for Talcott and Clara. That would be pretty cool.
Clara Barris, that'd be pretty.
Yeah.
By the way, the monument, the memorial to Samuel Hahnemann in Washington is really a work of art. It is probably the most beautiful monument memorial in the city.
It is beautiful. I've never seen it in person. I've been in Washington, but I never got to see the memorial. That was before I ever studied homeopathy that I was there.
A lot of money was behind that.
Incredible.
He was well known. He was quite famous.
Yeah. And
so this book, I had to touch a lot of bases. I think it should have been several books and would have been easier on me. But we'll see. Maybe it'll kick something off. I really do hope so.
I really hope so too. And how do you see the future of homeopathy? Do you ever see a stage where we might return to using homeopathy in asylums? Are they not called asylums these days? Hey, what do we call them? I
read my last chapter on investing in sanity. I have a fever dream about what's going to happen. Yes, I think they could come back, but so many things have to change because we're in such a rush. The thing about that, and Clara Barris was such a genius at this, there was an engagement with the patients. So they addressed them as persons. They addressed them from the standpoint of morality and every weapon they could use of discourse to try to convert them to sanity and engage with them without medications. I mean, this is really a heroic thing. So this idea of mental hygiene was very, very big. Clara Barris did wonderful things. She had giggle classes. She would get everybody together and get them to giggle together. But she had she was so strong on teaching respect for these individuals, So, but it's basically, do we have time to put somebody in a place where they can maybe stay there, take a few years to recover? What do we go? What do we do? We have our problems are so huge now. It would be quite an undertaking to bring that back. And that unfortunately will come through in the book. This is not an easy fix.
No, definitely.
We do need people. People need an asylum in its actual meaning, a place where you can stay and recover, and from what the sticks and arrows from that life has dealt you.
We have certainly created an incredible mess of our mental health as a civilization. So there is a lot of work to do, but that's where homeopathy can be so powerful and can really
It could
help.
be, but it would require our looking at ourselves, being honest, and there's so much denial going on. People do not know that they're crazy or that they think that their conditions are inevitable. They have no choice. And Robert Whitaker is very good at pointing these things out. And again, why I wrote the compendium, because we should know. We don't even know when we're crazy. We don't know. We think we're perfectly okay.
Well, I see a lot of crazy people on Instagram every single day, and somehow they celebrate it for their level of crazy. So I don't know. Yeah, it's good that you've got a compendium so we can see, okay, what is actually crazy and what is not, because there's definitely different levels out there at the moment. Oh, Jerry, it's been so wonderful to chat with you. Can you tell our listeners where they can get hold of your books? Because there are that's about 5 or 6 books, right? So where can people get hold of their books? Where can they find out more about you? Any lasting messages that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah. My own publishing house is modest as it is, Right Whale Press, RIGHTWHALE, and that's where I have the books I published myself: Interpreting Chronic Illness, The Toxic Relationship Cure. This one I wrote on using Yiddish to to teach homeopathy, Hamish Homeopathy. That's actually a very good book in disguise. It looks like it's an entertainment. I think it's too Yiddish for the most homeopaths and too homeopathic for the Yiddish crowd. But it has 150 remedies that it teaches with a lot of humor.
Oh, wow.
Yiddish is very, very good and very, very funny in terms of creating rubrics for homeopathy. So full of cartoons also. So those you can get there. My book on Autism Reversal Toolbox is through Emrys, or Nature Reveals. Mm-hmm. And these next two books will be coming out through Inner Traditions, Bear Company. It's going to be delivered through Simon & Schuster. But if you go to Inner Traditions, just Google the titles, they'll come up more easily. As I say, the one I have coming out in 2023 is just going through the editing phase now. Mm-hmm. But Sane Asylums, you'll hear about from various places, because people like you, Evgeny, doing such a wonderful job promoting this, letting folks know about it, which I appreciate so very, very much.
Well, I have a quick question for you. Just as a side note, is I always, when I purchase a book, and I am passionate about books, I want to make sure that I purchase it from somewhere where I know the money's actually going to go to the author. So is there like a preferred way to purchase the books?
Oh, that's a great question. Right now there's a pre-order page at Inner Traditions. So if you Google Sane Asylums, Jerry Kantor, Inner Traditions, that website will come up with the pre-order site.
Perfect. And
I'm sorry it's taking so long, but they really do a very, very good job there. It's a serious publishing house.
It sounds like it's worth the wait. I cannot wait to get my hands on this. And am I right if I say Sei gesund?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's various pronunciations. Sei gesund.
Sei gesund. And it was wonderful to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very, very much, Evgeny.